roughly 24 hours after the U.S. Copyright Office released a detailed report raising concerns about tech companies using copyrighted material to train AI models. President Trump fired Shira Perlmutter, the agency's director. The report concluded that, quote, making commercial use of vast troves of copyrighted works to produce expressive content that competes with them in existing markets, especially where this is accomplished through illegal access, goes beyond established fair use boundaries. So basically, using copyrighted material in AI systems is not legal, especially without compensating the people who created that material.
Yep.
What do you make of all this?
So I think there are two ways that this is actually like kind of a really big deal. One is what it says about what's happening with big tech, AI, where that's going. The other, which we'll get into, is that there was kind of a civil war within Trump world over the weekend about this that is very revealing. But unlike...
I couldn't follow it, by the way. So I don't really know. Over the weekend.
So on the like significance of it for tech, like we've had hints since the beginning of the big AI arms race rush that these companies are all stealing intellectual property. They're stealing books, they're stealing newspaper articles to illegally train their models on. And partly that is out of greed of not wanting to pay people for the rights for it. But I think mostly it's out of competition with one another, where each company wants to be the first to develop a dominant AI model the way that Google did with search. And it takes a long time to strike AI deals with like every book publisher, every AI company. It's a lot faster to just steal it and just steal the material. So the AI companies faced a bunch of lawsuits over this from like publishers, and it has been gradually coming out in dribs and drabs through these tales that like, yep, they did exactly what everybody thought. They were just like BitTorrenting giant files of pirated books to illegally train their models on. I think with the hope that they could just like get away with it, pay some like speeding fines basically, but then have an AI that would make them $1 bazillion. But in the middle of all this, just a few days ago, out comes this bombshell Copyright Office report arguing that, stealing aside, the entire practice of training AI models on publicly available data is a violation of copyright law. So like the entire basis of these models is a copyright violation, which means that not only to keep the models going do they have to cut IP deals with every single publisher they've stolen data from, but they have to do it retroactively, which is just like, you know, completely pulls the foundation out from under this entire business model because they've already done all this copyright violation. It means the publishers have all the leverage.
Well, and we should say that the report does not have the force of law behind it.
No, it doesn't. It's just recommendations.
And it doesn't say even the report, and this is important because of what happens to the person gets fired,
right.
Perlmutter gets fired.
Right.
The report itself said, you know, it still might be too early for government intervention because there are licensing deals being worked out, but this is what we think.
Right.
It does, as this is being fought out in the courts right now. There are many different cases about copyright and AI. Right. And what the courts would do is they think about this and think about ruling on this is they would look to the government to see what the U.S. Copyright Office says about this. Right. So in that way, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't like a silver bullet in and of itself, but it was another and a big step towards undercutting these business models.
So they put out the report. They fire Perlmutter
and her boss,
which
was at the Library of Congress for some reason. I don't really.
And they put into. Did they put in the Doge people?
So this is the drama is what happens after they are fired. Because we know now from reporting by Tina Nguyen at The Verge that it was probably Elon Musk and David Sachs behind the firing.
Right.
But then the big fight is over who is going to replace them, because there's immediately this huge internal backlash from Mike Davis, who is this like kind of crazy MAGA lawyer who's very anti-tech, and a bunch of the anti-tech MAGA people and like MAGA content creators, including Laura Loomer, who immediately got very upset about this. This is far-right nut job, Laura Loomer. Mike Davis gave a quote to The Verge. He said, quote, "You can say, well, we have to compete with China. No, we don't have to steal content to compete with China. We don't have slave labor to compete with China. It's a bullshit argument." And then this like MAGA wing got Trump to send 3 replacements in who were extremely anti-tech, like even more anti-tech than the people they were replacing, including a guy, Todd Blanche, who is Trump's personal attorney in the Stormy Daniels hush money trial.
Oh, yeah. You don't remember Todd Blanche?
I was not up on the Todd Blanche lore, but I am now. A lawyer who worked with Republican Representative Jim Jordan in the House Judiciary tech investigation. So this is like really, really anti-tech, like from term one people, it's a big L for the Elon Musk wing, who thought they were doing this coup.
And then Trump re-truthed Mike Davis's complaint about the whole thing.
Yes.
And which is like, before everyone knew that they had replaced the Perlmutter with the anti-tech Trump people. And so I was like, does he know what he's doing here? But clearly he was like, no, everything's good now.
Yes. It was very funny to see him re-truth someone's criticism of something he had done the day before. But it looks like what happened was there was this big fight between the Doge, Elon Musk, like crypto people and the old like MAGA culture war people, and the MAGA culture war people won.
And I am with the MAGA culture war people
I know,
on this one.
I know. I was going to say it's a real sign of the times when you're fucking rooting for the Laura Loomer wing of the party.
So hard on this one. No, and here's why. The copyright issue is bad enough, but, and this is connected to it, AI, as it continues on and gets faster and bigger and smarter and all the rest, it's going to replace a whole bunch of jobs, a whole bunch of industries, professions.
Yeah.
And the idea that it is replacing these based on value that other people created, that it stole, so that the tech companies can make a ton of money. And the tech companies refuse to pay for it, what they should have paid for it, because that doesn't help their business model, because they still don't even know how to make this profitable for themselves. And so it's like all these people that has created all this value and all this content and entertainment and knowledge and everything else, we're just going to steal it all. And then you're all going to be out of a job.
And they're going to produce a cheap, shitty version and pay you nothing for having
and
stolen
you can just
work.
Consume. You can just use ChatGPT.
Sit in your cocoon.
Get yourself a bot friend, chat bot friend, and then Sam Altman's like, and universal basic income, and I'm sure that'll work too, right? We'll just cut you a check every month, and you just sit around glued to your computer while we make all the money.
Your Doge dividend of 3 cents based on your
fucking real. This
I know.
Is Elon.
I know.
This is
the
we talked about this with
lawlessness of the
Zuckerberg and the 15 friends. It's like this is an anti-human ideology that they have.
It really is. Yes, seeing how much they want to train these chatbots to like replace people. And I keep thinking about that Apple ad that came out last year. Remember where it was training? It was an Apple ad for their AI services, or maybe it was Google actually. I hope I didn't just slander. I slandered one of them. So we'll just say It comes out evenly. The ad was, it's Christmas, or it's like your anniversary, Father's Day or something, and you forgot to get something for your partner. So just have the AI bot create something for them, create like a card for them based on like training data. And it's like, you just want to remove all of our most human obligations to each other and our relationships and replace it with like a little chatbot widget.
Well, guess who doesn't like that?
Laura Loomer.
The Vatican.
Okay, there we go. Rare offline Vatican Laura Loomer agreement on something.
Last week, Robert Prevost, who hails from the south side of Chicago, became the first American pope. He decided to take the name Pope Leo XIV. And then he explained to his fellow cardinals that he chose the name in honor of Pope Leo XIII, who served as head of the Catholic Church during the Industrial Revolution. Leo XIV told the crowd, quote, "In our own day, the church offers to everyone the treasury of her social teaching in response to another industrial revolution and to developments in the field of artificial intelligence that pose new challenges for the defense of human dignity, justice, and labor."
Wow.
Turns out that the woke Marxist Pope is actually the woke offline Pope. Yes. You can still sing that to the tune of Pink Pony Club, fortunately. Should we invite our offline pontiff onto the pod?
Oh my God. I feel like Vivek Murthy and Lena Khan are now facing some real competition for third chair of this show. He's not going to be busy, right? We can get Leo on here.
I think we can get one of his brothers. They're all over TV all the time.
That's true.
Although I think they're a little more MAGA. What did you make of this?
I think it's really interesting as kind of a data point about like where we are culturally. Like it made me immediately think back to the story I told on here a couple of weeks ago about an Easter sermon that Julia went to, where the pastor kept talking about protecting kids from the internet. Like I think we're at a point where concern about AI and technology is bubbling up to a kind of cultural consensus.
Yeah.
And I think you see that reflected in what he said. And he's especially like, he's a relatively young guy. I mean, he's in his 60s, but he's not that far removed from working with regular people, with parishioners. So it makes me think that this is like reflects the kind of concerns that he is listening to. But I'm curious what you think. Like, do you think this is does it matter that he is like...
Yes, I think it matters. I mean, will it be effective? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I think it matters. I also think it's not surprising. So Pope Francis also had these same views.
About AI?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And there was an encyclical that the Vatican released at the beginning of January or the end of January this year. And just going to read some of it. Since AI cannot offer this fullness of understanding, approaches that rely solely on this technology or treat it as the primary means of interpreting the world can lead to a loss of appreciation for the whole, for the relationships between things, and for the broader horizon. Human intelligence is not primarily about completing functional tasks, but about understanding and actively engaging with reality in all its dimensions. And Leo, this Pope, is very worried specifically about replacing labor and people's jobs, stuff like that.
Right.
And it says, drawing an overly close equivalence between human intelligence and AI risks succumbing to a functionalist perspective where people are valued based on the work they can perform. However, a person's worth does not depend on possessing specific skills, cognitive and technological achievements, or individual success, but on the person's inherent dignity, grounded in being created in the image of God. And I do think that, and when you read the encyclical, it is as much of a response to the techno-futurist, sort of transhuman view of the world that Elon represents, and that I do think some of the MAGA people who are maybe in more of a religious tradition oppose than anything else.
It is so interesting to hear them couch it in protecting the idea of there being something sacrosanct about being human.
Yes. And
about that being under threat by technology that obviously resonates with me, even though there is something a little bit cyberpunky about it. Like I'm kind of surprised to find myself reading more religious voices these days.
Me
I'm
too.
not like a religious person at all. I'm not spiritual. I don't like the organized or like always been like, kind of apart from it. But I do think that it does make a lot of sense that would be where a lot of the reaction to these trends from big tech and social isolation would come from, because, what is a big religious organization if not a community, place to come together, a set of shared values that would link people? I mean, it's a lot of what we talk about here about Robert Putnam, Bowling Alone, the loss of third spaces. That's a role that religion has played in human civilization for thousands of years.
Yeah. And Pope Leo talks a lot about Catholic social teaching, and that was a big deal for the last Leo as well.
Right. Yeah.
And Catholic social teaching is in some, it's like the right thinks of it as commie at this point, communist.
Yeah, right.
And, I mean,
the idea that we have obligations.
I went to a Jesuit college, so it was very social justice was at the core of that. And so everyone's always like, oh, woke Pope, but really Francis and now Leo, I think their beliefs are grounded more in the Catholic social teaching that you're right. Like people are not, I mean, he says later, the logical consequence of the technocratic paradigm is a world of humanity enslaved to efficiency, where ultimately the cost of humanity must be cut. Wow. I mean, it sounds like it's pretty lefty.
It does. Yeah.
But that's the Pope.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I was thinking a lot about the last Pope's first few years and the emphasis that he put on the global migration crisis specifically, which is obviously a thing for him, like throughout his tenure. Is that the word for when you're a Pope?
Yeah. Tenure?
Let's say tenure. Yeah.
Reign? Not reign. It's not reign.
Your term. His first trip was to the island of Lampedusa, which is an Italian island in the Mediterranean, where a lot of refugees would be their first stop, and they would get like maybe let into the EU, maybe horribly mistreated there. And obviously he did not like single-handedly solve the global refugee crisis, nor did he solve the far-right backlash to immigration. But I do think if you look at especially the politics within Europe, him just being a voice and a prominent figure to say, we all know what's right here and we all know what's wrong here, and we have to make space for that and keep that in mind. I think that you probably don't get things like Germany letting in 1 million refugees in 2015 without that. So I don't know what the specific line is. Like, I don't know that Congress is going to pass like better AI regulations because of Pope Leo, but it's also not out of the realm of possibility. And I do think there is something to having such a visible cultural figure who, whether you are Catholic or not, kind of like everybody agrees is a moral authority and a moral voice in the world.
Someone
like, really
needs
matters.
to offer a moral or ethical compass around AI that is not immediately seen as, oh, this is a politician. or this is
Compromised,
right, exactly.
What do we always talk about? We talk about the importance of institutions.
That's
This
right.
is one of the last trusted institutions globally.
Yeah.